our love for Mauna Kea, I want to also extend our aloha from the Mauna to Maui and to Lahaina and Kula and the people who have been suffering from the recent wildfires. So we send them our aloha and let them know, as we do as often as we can, that the work we do for the love of our land is also for the love of theirs and all of Hawaii. So with that, yeah. Aloha aina and good morning, everybody.
Oh, thank you very much. We have to, sometimes we have to remind ourselves that we're all connected, whether we're on Big Island, Oahu, Maui, and we have to be one community of everyone. So thanks for sharing those words. With that, I just wanted to confirm, Poena, we are streaming on live streaming on YouTube. Yeah, I got the notification. Thank you. Having said that, is there anyone that wishes to make public comment on any of the agenda items?
Chair, need to take roll
Okay.
of all members present.
Okay. Let me just call out people and just signify you being present. Noi Wong Wilson,
Present.
Bonnie Irwin,
Present. I'm also alone in my room. I think you also need to know that.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, me too.
Let
I'm
me get a
alone.
clarification about that, because what I read is that only pertains to when you go into executive session. So I'm not sure if my understanding is correct or not.
So at
Anyway.
the beginning, the remote meeting,
Yeah.
the chair must list members present, and all members attending in a private location must state who is present with them.
Okay. Still noted. All right. Ben Kudo,
Here and alone.
Laura Kakua.
Present and alone.
Thank you. Rich Matsuda. Rich. He's
I'm
present.
present and alone.
All right. Thank you. And Lana Kila. Okay, well, Lana Kila is hooking up. I'm present and alone. Thank you. And same for me, present and alone. Thank you. Let me ask again whether or not there's anyone that wishes to make any public comment on any of our agenda items. Okay. If not, we have the draft minutes of the September 14th, 2023 meeting. Any proposed amendments or any changes that anyone wishes to offer? If not, could I get a motion to approve the minutes as drafted?
So move. I move to approve the September 14th minutes as written.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye or raising your hand.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Not, motion carried unanimously. I wanted, as part of my chair's report, to report on several different matters. The first is at the invitation of the National Science Foundation, Noi Wong Wilson and I traveled to Washington, D.C. To meet with them. The purpose of the meeting was to introduce ourselves to the director and get to know the director, as well as providing a status report of what we as an authority have been doing in the past several months. So we did have the opportunity to meet with the director and give him a status as to how the authority is focused primarily on standing up the state agency. We also met with several of the staff people got to meet people in the astronomy division as well as the general counsel's office. And had, very good meetings. One of our main contacts at the National Science Foundation, a gentleman by the name of Dr. Sean Jones, is actually leaving the agency. He was in charge of astronomy, mathematics, and I think physical sciences or something, but he's leaving. And so one of the reasons for going up there was to make introductions to others that we're going to have to deal with that we didn't really meet before. I wanted to just put on the record for everyone that we did not discuss at all TMT nor NSF's funding of TMT. We had no discussions with any of the people that we met with regarding that. We also, as part of that trip, sat down with Senator Schatz and Senator Hirono for the same reason, to give them a briefing on what we've been doing as the authority over the past couple of months, and what we've done in terms of standing up with authority, and some of the challenges and also some of the wins that we've had over the past couple of months. I would ask that if Noi wants to add anything to that general report.
No, Chair, I don't have anything to add. You pretty much addressed it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from anyone about our visit to DC? Okay, if not, I wanted to discuss the executive director position posting. A couple of Mondays ago, we actually were able to get through the state system and actually post the position for executive director, seeking applicants both internal to the state as well as external applicants. The time for internal applicants actually closed, but we continue to solicit additional applicants externally. We have about 4 or 5 applicants. As recently as today, I'm getting inquiries from external people asking if it's okay to apply at this stage, and the answer is yes. I would urge all of you to, in your contact list, if you can think of people that might be good people to serve as executive director, that you consider reaching out to them and encouraging them to at least consider filing for or applying for the executive director position. I think that some of the candidates, I would guess, are people that you already know and have some working knowledge of some of the issues that surround Mauna Kea. We're still in the process of kind of formalizing in a written form our process in how we're going to proceed to this. The first step that we've envisioned is a screening committee. The screening committee would review the applicants that have filed with us and reduce that applicant pool to a pool of 3, not a ranking, but just for full consideration of this full board, so that instead of dealing with 20 people, we end up dealing with 3. So I've asked Paul Horner, who couldn't be with us today, to chair that initial screening committee. The other 2 members of that screening committee would be Laura and Paul Mai. So we're proceeding along. We're going to have to determine what is appropriate cutoff date in terms of seeking applicants. But part of the challenge is making sure that we have a large enough applicant pool so that we can ensure that we're not that the number of applicants govern this, but we have sufficient pools from which to select an executive director is probably the most important position, or it is the most important position that we're going to hire for. So with that, I don't know if there are any questions or comments. Okay. With that being said, I wanted to move on to the question regarding governance. We have one of the issues, you know, that we're facing on July 1st, since July 1st, is the issue of co-management with the University of Hawaii of CMS and what that means. We've had several meetings along those lines. You know, the legislation is somewhat vague about what co-management means. And I think that my interpretation was that was given to us as a responsibility, us as the authority and us as the University of Hawaii, to kind of develop our own kind of framework as to what co-management would mean, rather than the legislature dictating that to us. I think the legislature, in its wisdom, decided that we would, as people on the ground, be best suited to determining how we co-manage through this 5-year transition period. So as a result, we've met with a couple of the regions and have come up with a kind of a broad framework. You know, we've talked about it in these 2 meetings. One of the ideas is to create, and this is at a very high level because we have not yet reached consensus with the regions. I think we're on the path of consensus, but we haven't reached a consensus yet. The idea would be to create a working group comprised of regions and authority members to address any type of the issues that may arise where there may be either lack of alignment or direct conflict about the direction in which we believe the mountain should be managed with. But right now, the discussions with the regions are very productive. We hope to come up with a written proposal that will be taken back to each of our respective boards. The written summary by design will be very high level. We want to give this working committee, a working group or committee, flexibility to proceed in a way that they think is most expeditious, as well as most productive in terms of how we address these issues, and not tie their hands as we move forward. So we're right now awaiting comments back from the regions in regards to a written proposal that we've submitted to them at a high level. Thanks should go to Authority Member Ben Kudo, who helped really draft the substantial majority of everything that's contained within that. The other working group that we're talking about is what I would call an operational transition group, whereby we would create a inventory of those items that need to be transferred from UH and CMS to the authority. That would hopefully encompass the whole world in terms of everything that needs to be transferred. And starting after we obtain that inventory, we'd start having a working group address, you know, which of these items are actually going to be transferred from the UH or CMS to the authority, and the manner in which they would be transferred, as well as the timing on how all of that gets transferred. So that's also in discussion with the regions, and trying to put some again, a generalized description in writing, so that we can proceed along with that second working group. So the 2 working groups is one that actually gets us through the helps us get through the transition period, The second one is actually mechanical as to, what has to be transitioned at June 30th, by June 30th, 2028. Any questions on those discussions or what we're proposing? Both of those, once we get agreement from the regions, both of those will be presented to all of you for further review as well as your approval. Any questions at this point? Okay. Doug had indicated that he was going to be late to this meeting, so I'm not sure, Wes. I had anticipated that Doug might be here by now. So Wes, I don't know if you want to sort of just summarize the report that all of you prepared in regards to retention of consultants.
Good morning, trustees, Ryan and others. I'm not sure exactly what Doug had in mind. I haven't spoken to him in a while, but I do know that I'm not sure if a draft RFP was sent out to the trustees or not.
Yeah, he sent out a report which basically summarizes what your conclusions are, as well as the attachments that you drafted. One, drafting a RFP, sort of a checklist, and then how we would go about retaining consultants. Both documents which he attributes to your drafting.
Yeah, so essentially you have two ways of trying to secure a consultant. One, through the qualified list of professional services through the Department of Land and Natural Resources qualified list. The issue with that, though, is that it's mainly geared for engineering and other related activities of the department, which doesn't necessarily fit into what you're looking for. So we did try to add in at this last go around auditing and other services that we felt may be helpful, but we're not sure if that's going to work either. So as a result of that, we tried to do an alternative by issuing a request for proposal draft. That probably will get you a better outcome in terms of a consultant that's more appropriate for what you need. The difference between the two is the qualified list expedites the procurement process, and the RFP process will probably take longer. Although I think the outcome for that one would probably best be suited for what you want. The draft RFP that was done by the group still needs to include certain things that were not included, such as the scoring, in terms of what's most important for the trustees in terms of consultant. So all of those things, or some of those things, need to be worked out, but essentially you have the meat of what needs to be in the request for proposal. It'll probably take maybe another month or so to refine it, to get it where it can be issued and approved by the board members. So that is something that I can, or the group can generate, is a listing of things that still need to be included within the RFP if the board members choose to go that route.
So having reviewed the
Chair.
Yeah.
Before any Q&A, I'm gonna caution not to, because during a PIG report, the PIG phases, this is the second meeting, right? This is the report phase. So I caution Q&A because that might constitute deliberation and decision-making by the board members. What I would recommend here is, if Wes is finished with his presentation, perhaps to allow Doug to come on, so you can defer the matter until, Doug comes back on and he can continue on the report if there's any additional remarks that he wants to make or whatnot. But as far as a Q&A back and forth, I would recommend against that at this point in time. That can be done at the next meeting.
Okay, good point. Okay, so we'll defer this matter until Doug has the ability to complete the report and add anything that he might want. Okay. Next item is finance. There's really nothing to report on finance. We've talked a little bit about some of the fiscal challenges that the state may face because of matters associated with Maui as well as other issues. But at this point, there's no decision for us to address. So, and in terms of finance, I would just note that that's to be determined at a later date. At this point, I know that Greg had to zoom in. Greg Chun had to zoom in today, is not physically present. So I'd ask Poyana if you could let Greg into the room so he can give us a report. While that's happening, I just wanted to kind of set the context about some of Greg's report. We had talked previously about I guess the framework that university and CMS had devised in terms of ABC type of projects. Remember, A were the projects which were relatively minor in nature and didn't require, there's a process how you arrive at A, and Bonnie is integral to that process and is actually the decision maker as to whether a project is an A project, a B project, a C project. A projects, as you know, do not require approval, but are being provided, information is being provided to you for more from an informational standpoint. B projects are moderate projects, but nonetheless may require permits or other types of regulatory approvals. In those instances, the university framework requires some type of approval by various bodies. And the C projects are like brand new construction, which most definitely would require approvals, and those matters would again be brought to this body for approval. So the point of all of this is that the discussion and the report that Greg has today deal with all matters that have been the first matter, the visitor information station storage enclosure has been deemed to be a category project, which I agree is a category project. So it's more informational in nature to let you know what they have intended. So I just wanted to set that framework before turning it over to Greg to discuss the projects as well as provide reports on the traffic as well as the nomination of Mauna Kea as a traditional cultural property. So with that, Greg.
Mahalo, John, and aloha, authority board members. Nice to see everyone. So Pua'ena, if you could let me share screen, I just want to thank you. Hold on a second here. Okay, so what I've done is I've just extracted some of the photos and graphics from the various materials that I provided. At the last board meeting, I briefly discussed this particular project, and there was a request to learn a little bit more about it, and so that's why we're bringing it back to the authority today. As John indicated, this project is, the proposal is to enclose a portion of the outdoor lanai at the visitor information station that currently is pretty much unusable space. We use it for storage of different things during the day, but at night we have to move everything into the visitor information station for security purposes. There are a variety of outdoor exhibits that we would like to have a permanent display, storage area for, along with some of the telescopes that we utilize in the evenings. So this would provide us a secured area to be able to store this equipment and supplies during the evening hours. As John indicated, we deemed this a project. It is considered a permitted use within the DLNR's Hawaii Administrative Rules 13-5 that govern or apply to conservation lands. Modifications of an existing structure typically are considered a permitted use. So there's some photos here that we graphics here that we prepared just to give people a sense of what would be involved. We're not extending the eaves or the roof line or anything like that. We're just enclosing the area that sort of sits in that little L shape as it is. It would be wooden siding to match siding on the other side of the building. And obviously would have a door and a lock. We did take this project, as we do all our projects, even A projects, through our advisory groups process. And as indicated in our write-up, you see that the Environment Committee, Kahuku Mauna, and Mauna Kea Management Board had no comments or other suggestions. I do think bringing this project forward for information purposes is also useful at this time, because it gives you, the packet gives you an idea of the evaluation that we go through when we review any project, whether it's a small one like this or a large one. There's actually quite a bit of back and forth between our staff and the project proposer prior to even bringing it forward. And there's usually even consultation with DLNR, not all the time, but many times ahead of time if the classification of a project is unclear. So before it ever gets to a point of even bringing it forward, there typically is a month or more of additional due diligence that we're doing with the project proposer. And then that gets packaged into the kind of the package that you see. The project is required, all projects are required to comply with their comprehensive management plan, our master plan, and various other policies that we have in place. And that, so the write-up that you see is fairly typical or very typical of what we do for all of our projects. And like I said, in addition to the evaluation of the project against our own internal management plans and policies, we also have to start with looking at how it complies with HAR 13-5 itself, which is, as I said, DLNR's rules regulating conservation lands. So before I go on to the traffic report, let me stop here and see if there's any questions.
I don't have a question, Greg, but I just want to mahalo you for giving us this information. Thank you.
Surely, surely.
Hi, Greg. Yeah, thank you for providing the information. I don't have any particular concerns about the project. I just wanted to check. You have mentioned that you tip, or in many cases, you confer with DLNR, and I'm guessing that's our Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands. And so I'm just wondering if less so in particular to this project, but more so just for our information as to process. Did you reach out to Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands about this, just to check in? Is that your process here?
I don't believe we checked in with this one. Based on our experience, we're pretty familiar and our working relationship with OCCL. We're pretty certain what they would be looking for and requiring. Once we submit it, if there are any issues and they want us to handle it a different way, then we will, re-engage the process and sort of take it through the steps again.
Okay.
But in this particular case, I don't believe there was any consultation.
Okay, yeah, and like I said, I don't have particular concerns, just asking. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Any other questions? Okay, if no other questions, I'd like to move on. Enlarge this here. So a couple of meetings back, I believe it was Noi that requested some of our data around vehicle traffic. And so Rodrigo Romo, our general manager for Mauna Kea Shared Services, put this report together. We usually we track this data in different ways. We're giving you sort of big picture slices of it, but we do track it on an annual basis and on a monthly basis as well. We thought that it might be useful for the authority to sort of get a big picture view of vehicle traffic as it occurs typically by time of day, because that is sort of one of our challenges with managing traffic. Clearly, it's the late afternoon, evening hours that are the most popular, if you will, for folks to come up. And so typically that's when we will make sure we have all of our staff who are rangers who are assigned to the checkpoint before you go up are fully prepared. They're there. They typically put off eating their dinner until later that night, just to make sure they can manage everything. And then they're also doing night patrols before everybody comes down. That's probably the most busiest time of the day is at 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. time frame, because most people are wanting to go up for sunset viewing. We as I indicated, we slice it by slice the data in a number of different ways, and we have different methods for actually doing our vehicle counts, which are explained in the write-up that I provided to you folks. I did want to just sort of point out the one thing, the graph on the bottom here, types of vehicle totals by year. You can see that over time, observatory vehicle traffic has tapered off, and that is primarily due to them moving more and more into remote operations. Clearly, with the need for four-wheel drive uses, vehicles have been fairly high. And then, of course, with the implementation of our administrative rules, two-wheel drives are no longer allowed up there.
Greg, perhaps you can show the slide. It's not up on the shared screen.
Oh, really?
No. Yeah, we're still looking at the monthly cars by time slot.
Oh, really? Oh.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
So you want to show the Ranger hand counts, types of vehicles, total by year? There you go. Yeah.
I don't know why it's not showing.
It's up now. We see it now.
Okay, now my screen is blank. Yeah. Hang on. Okay, all right. Maybe because I went to full screen mode. I don't know. Let me try to expand this a little bit. So a couple of interesting patterns here is that observatory use has gone down over the years. Obviously, four-wheel drive use remains the preferred method. But you can see that commercial operator traffic has remained fairly steady, except during the pandemic and whatnot, and hasn't really come back totally. But that the majority of the traffic are really the independent folks, which includes both visitors and residents going up in four-wheel drives. So that is where we have the primary vehicle usage or vehicle traffic. It's not the observatories and it's not the commercial operators. It really is the independent folks driving up. And then the other thing is we just wanted to show you sort of what the impact of restricting all traffic to four-wheel drive vehicles has been when the administrative rules went into effect. So here you see 2005 versus 2022. So clearly there no longer anybody allowed to go up into four-wheel drive, which we think has helped tremendously with some of managing some of the safety concerns up there. The report talks a little bit about differences in seasonality. We typically see increased traffic during some spring break, clearly during the winter, especially when there's snow. And then, of course, if because of weather events, we have to close the road, then traffic use goes way down. So there are a number of different factors that affect sort of the pattern of traffic up there. So I don't know if folks have any questions about the write-up that accompanied this report as well.
I have a question, Greg.
Sure.
For the commercial vehicles, do the permitted vehicles have a tag or a sticker on their window that allows the rangers to count them? How do they know that a vehicle, one vehicle is permitted versus a second one who might be a commercial vehicle that's just not permitted but still accessing the mountain?
Permitted vehicles, along with all observatory staff, as well as CMS staff, their vehicles would have an RFID, radio frequency ID tag. That RFID system has been down for a while, so we have had to regulate, if you will, the commercial users via the rangers doing their briefings and whatnot when they go up. We have had occasions, probably once or twice a month, in which we discover some unpermitted commercial operator trying to take people up, in which we have to turn them away. But unfortunately, we don't catch them all, and sometimes they've gotten creative in sort of how to disguise that they are an operator. But we do turn them around when we do catch them.
Okay, one more question is, what are the hours of the visitor center? Because 75% of your traffic, vehicle traffic, occurs between noon and 8 p.m., right?
Yeah.
With the bulk of it being after 4 o'clock.
We just expanded the hours. It's 9 a.m. to 8 p.m.
So they're up there and open all the way to 8 p.m.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so is there any consideration that in order to understand whether the vehicular traffic is visitor or resident, because you can't go up past the past the rangers anyway, that when they stop, they can simply pick up a tag or, you know, have some way of being able to get further down into that detail. That wouldn't be, you know, cost prohibitive or take up more time than absolutely necessary. But if you've got staff there, it's pretty easy. Everybody stops to acclimate, right?
Right.
Even for a few minutes. That,
Yeah,
that
actually,
you
what-
might be able to do some statistical work that way.
Actually, what we were wanting to do is really move to a reservation system along the lines of what they have in Haena or something like that. But with the creation of the MKSOA, some of those kinds of things that we wanted to do, we believe it was better to put them on hold so we could work with you folks on some of that stuff. But that's actually what the plan we had preferred moving towards. It's a reservation system that would include a bunch of other things as well. I was mistaken. Visitor center is open from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m., not 8 p.m.
Okay, thank you.
Further
Yeah.
questions by anyone on this traffic study? Thanks, Greg.
Okay.
Very helpful.
Okay, so wanted to just briefly talk about the nomination of Mauna Kea by Kahea and Mauna Kea Anainaho as a traditional cultural property, which would qualify it as being listed under both the national as well as the state historic registers. So on July 20th, Bonnie and I received a letter from Kahea on behalf of them and Mauna Kea Anainaho, notifying us that they had intended to move forward with a nomination of Mauna Kea as a TCP. The proposed area that it would include extends down to the 6,500 foot elevation. So this is the map they provided in the materials that they gave us. Here you see the area of what do you call DKI. It basically goes down to about Ku'uhuhu and seems to encompass some of, well, it certainly encompasses the DLNR lands as well as the non-UH DHHL. I mean, DLNR, DHHL lands and non-UH DLNR lands. I do know that neighboring property owners, at least some neighboring property owners on the eastern side, the Hamakua side, as well as up in Waimea have received notification letters as well. So this is something that has been talked about in the past, and it's not a new idea. In the case of the Federal Register, the National Park Service would be the one that would be approving the designation. In the case of state, it would be State Historic Preservation or DLNR. So we've been looking at this for a while. We don't have a complete understanding of all the implications of listing. But if it were listed or at least deemed eligible for listing, if the Mauna was deemed eligible for listing, this would raise the level of analysis, consultation, and mitigation for project involving federal actions, such as TMT, under Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act. And also for state actions, such as leases under HRS Chapter 6C. The potential area of potential effect increases significantly for the projects. So in other words, the projects now have to be evaluated in terms of their impact on the whole TCP area, essentially. One of the things of sort of more immediate interest and concern to us was whether or how a designation would impact our implementation of the comprehensive management plan or administrative rules. After looking at it, we don't believe that it would. The university did in our 2022 CMP update take the position that we would not oppose such a nomination. Again, this has been talked about in the past, and would share our relevant studies and reports related to our lands should a nomination move forward. But essentially, we felt that this was a DLNR and MK SOA now matter of jurisdiction. So I don't know the status of the actual nomination. This is the only information that we've received thus far. As I said, I know that there some of the surrounding other impacted landowners have been affected. They've been reaching out to us to consult with them. But at this point, we're just sort of waiting and to hear what the next step might be. Any questions on this item?
Greg, why do you say that it's just an MK SOA deal in our jurisdiction and not currently CMS and UH?
We never felt that as a lessee, it was our place to move forward with that kind of a nomination. So we always thought it should have been DLNR. And I include MK SOA now just because you folks will have control, at least over the current UH managed lands. I don't know how DLNR would handle their other non-UH managed lands.
It still doesn't make, I mean, as it relates to MKSOA, doesn't make sense to me what you just said, because we stand in the same position as you right now, UH, right?
Yeah.
And
Right now we do. Yeah.
And we're not sure how the land is going to be transferred or how the land comes to MKSOA on July 1st, 2028, whether we become the ultimate owner of the land or we become lessees again. So I'm not real clear how you can make the statement as MKSOA jurisdiction. But anyway, we can talk about that later. It doesn't quite make sense to me.
Well, I think one way that it distinguishes in my mind is that as a lessee, we can't approve a designation. I mean, ultimately, that would have to go back to DLNR, I would think.
Right, but if MKSOA steps into your shoes, we become a lessee also. That's my point. If we're
I mean, and that to me is undetermined, right?
Right.
I mean, we don't know how you folks will hold title, if you will, to the land.
Okay. Other questions?
Greg, in your analysis, looking at that, would you say too that that would not only put these levels or these higher federal degrees of analysis on there, but do you know that would that govern more under federal jurisdiction now, oversight to I guess I'm just a bit more inquisitive too on if that gives more of a federal authority on these lands, or is it just through processes, just like a checking in with the under a federal level for certain buildings and projects?
Yeah, I actually think Ben or John might know better about that, but my understanding is it would require additional analysis for sure, but not necessarily over regulatory oversight.
Okay, thank you.
Ben, you want to add something?
Yeah, designation is at two levels, either state and or federal. And each legal regime has different restrictions on what you can and can't do once it's designated for that particular level of government. The federal requirement is more restrictive than the state. And that's why I think Greg is saying that University of Hawaii as lessee really wouldn't have the authority to promote the designation of the lands under the lease because it would affect the landowner's rights. DLNR is the fee simple landowner of that mountain. So DLNR would be the appropriate party to seek historic, a designation at the federal and state level if they so desired as the landowner. I mean, the restrictions are such that, because it's historic or cultural, any kind of development of the lands would be, restricted, and there may be some exceptions to it. There's also a process to delist properties that you can go through as well. So landowners are concerned about having their properties designated on the historic register because of those restrictions, but there are some benefits, like, you get your real property tax exemption on the state level. I'm not sure what the federal benefits are, but and that's why it's not something that you simply would do without thinking about what the ramifications would be to the entity that holds title.
So Ben, if I can ask a question a little bit different way, would we as an authority, if these designations got approved, be ceding authority over the management of the land, some portion of authority to either the state government, whoever manages that, or to the federal government?
Yeah, you would be subject to those regulations as the manager of the mountain. In other words, you will be restricted from doing anything that you want. And so, although if you assume that getting the designation is a positive thing, I would think that doing it at a later date, after you know what you're going to do and not do on the mountain, would be the appropriate time to designate, because it could restrict something that the authority may want to do on the mountain to administer its duties and responsibilities, but would be prevented because of the restrictions of development on the land, on the property. So I think it's somewhat premature to do it now. That's just my personal opinion.
Thank you. Other questions?
Yeah,
Laura's hand.
Go
or
ahead,
I
Laura.
guess maybe, I don't know if it's a question or maybe just a comment, if I can, that I think from the DLNR perspective, because this is long-term planning, really. So I think or I'll just speak for myself, I wouldn't be comfortable moving this forward unless this is what the authority wants to see as the future manager and potential future landowner, right? So either we're landowner, but really the manager is the authority, or DLNR steps out completely aside from our role as regulator with the Office of Conservation and Coastal Lands and State Historic Preservation Division. So I guess my offer that the authority can think about is whether we would like maybe just some information from the State Historic Preservation Division on their process, or their perspective on this nomination. So maybe at a future meeting, just something to consider, John, in case you would like to hear from them.
Yeah, I think that's a good suggestion. I also wanted to talk a little bit more about this in executive session.
I just and a thought to that too, because in certain cases, this sounds in my head right now, it just sounds like there's could be benefits to this for sure. But I strongly feel like a community consultation is a big component to this. Or we're talking bringing something into federal, which that's not necessarily our responsibility at this time, unless we wanted to if we're making a decision or if we were to ever to want to support this. However, do you think that it might be possible or something too to reach out to these bodies that put this forward to, I guess, Kahia and Ainaho to perhaps present with us their reasons for bringing this forward or initiating this initiative?
No, I think we can ask them for information, and maybe at the same time, we bring in the DLNR people too to get their perspective also.
This is Doug, I would just be wary of there being a misconception that we are in a decision-making role at that point. This is purely informational.
Yeah, Kako.
I agree, Doug. I'm not even sure we have any decision making responsibility here. But getting information and understanding people's perspective, I think, is good.
Well, even if we don't have decision-making authority, we may be asked to weigh in anyway, right? Whether or not. So, I mean, to me, the more informed we are, the better. Right? Well, making it clear that we may not have this, well, it doesn't seem like we have decision-making authority. Okay. Any further questions on this particular matter? Thank you, Greg. Any other, let me ask if anybody has any questions for Greg about any other matters dealing with CMS at this point.
No, thank you, Greg.
Okay. Doug, we got a brief before we go to executive session, we got a brief overview from Wes about the process that you guys described. I want to give you the opportunity to express anything that you might think is important about your PIGS report on consultants. And we've been cautioned by our attorney that due to this is a report of a PIG, that further questions and discussion should be probably held off until the next meeting.
That's actually, Chair, that's what I was going to actually say. So at this time, I have nothing to add other than to what Wes was able to say, and I'll be happy to talk more about it at our next meeting.
Okay, with that, I would ask for a motion to allow us to go into executive session to consult with our attorney.
No, so moved.
Okay. And I assume that you moved it pursuant to how it's described in the agenda.
As stated in our agenda.
Gotta get a second.
Second,
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, unanimous. Poena, are you able to get us to that outside room?
John, does Wes go in or no?
No.
Okay.
Okay, Buena, we're back. Are you there?
Yep, just close the room.
All right, thank you. Okay, so during the executive session, we obtained legal counsel regarding proposed potential legislative amendments to Act 255, as well as the interpretation of what our exemption from Section 2635 HRS, what that exemption provides for. So in terms of announcements, our next meeting is October 12th. The next item, I should have probably been part of the chair's report.
John, excuse me, that's the incorrect
Okay, sorry.
date. It's
It-
November 9th.
Okay, November 9th.
Today is October 12th. Yeah, I just
All right.
didn't get correct. Unless you're giving us November off, but I don't think so.
No time off. November 9th at 10 o'clock. The next item should probably have been provided as part of the chair's report, but I'll do that next time. But the Board of Land and Natural Resources, there was a hearing that was previously scheduled, and the hearing that we're talking about is a hearing questioning whether TMT has complied with the conditions as set forth in the CDUP. And the condition that the proponents are questioning is whether or not they have complied with the condition regarding start of construction. And that hearing, and I forget the exact prior date, that hearing has now been scheduled for November 7th at 1:00 p.m. But like I said, that the question is whether or not TMT adequately complied with the start of construction. And just to educate members of the authority, the prior chair of the BLNR ruled that it had, and people are asking for, well, the proponents are asking that the entire board take up the question as to whether or not TMT complied with the condition. So that's the nature of the hearing on November 7th at 1:00, and I think they will be on live streamed on YouTube also. Okay, with that, I look for a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Motion to adjourn.
Get a second.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor, aye, raise your hand. Thank you.
Aye.
Any
Thank you.
opposed? Okay, thanks, everybody. See you all on November 9th.
I'm sorry, who was that second?
Ben Kudo.
Wait, Mahal.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.